Well, let's begin with the truth unveiled, the final meeting of this segment of 10 meetings. We started somewhere in December, I think, or maybe even before that. We continue today with the last episode, which is also a summary of the new message. And we didn't hear the new message yet, but I thought it was great to start with the summary and then next week continue with the new message, or in fact, that what happened before the message came out. And in the London work, where we look at the practitioner and teacher training or instructions with the London work in 1963. So it's like the continuation of the tapes that are given. The Hawaiian special class that we're doing now continues till today, this meeting, this video, and then it becomes London work. Now, that's all background information, so that's not really where it's all about, but it's still, say, part that you should know. That's what I think. And so I'm happy that you're here, that you joined today in this meeting. We have a meditation first, and we use for that a poem that Joel uses in the talk that we listened to today, Born of Song. And it's a beautiful poem. We start with that just to come into a relaxation, into connecting within, into releasing everything else right away, even though you might just have woken up, or you might, who knows what. Like, this is the time to release it all. This is the moment where we in fact recognize that we are communicating together as one, by letting go of all the ideas that prove in opposite ways, or perceptions that seem not to really like tell us that. We release the images, let go of the thoughts about what we think is going on, or what will happen tomorrow, or what happened yesterday. And in that we release also all ideas of guilt, or of suffering, or of pain. Release all of that. And how do you do that? In fact, not picking it up, not engaging with it, letting it go, not mind wandering, but staying focused on the release of all the ideas, not engaging with them, looking at the ideas that are coming up with disinterest, but allowing a space in your consciousness for light and love. Now, this meditation is made for that too. Like Joel uses it in a certain way. We will see that later, but here we have an opportunity to become still, to have a listening attitude, listening with our whole being instead of our ears, or listening with your heart instead of your ears. So let's listen to that and take part in that. I am the wind which breathes upon the water. I am the wave of the ocean. I am the murmur of the billows. I am the ox of the 7 combats. I am the vulture upon the rocks. I am a beam of the sun. I am the fairest of plants. I am a wild boar in valor. I am a salmon in the water. I am a lake in the plain. I am a word of science. I am the point of the lance in battle. I am the God who creates in the head the fire. Who is it who throws light into the meeting on the mountain? Who announces the ages of the moon? Who teaches the place where couches the sun?
Une fusion en. Je suis le vent qui souffle sur la mer. Je suis la vague de l'océan. Je suis le murmure des marées. Je suis le bœuf des 7 combats. Je suis le vautour sur les rochers. Je suis un rayon du soleil. Je suis la plus belle des plantes. Je suis un sanglier dans la vaillance. Je suis un saumon dans l'eau. Je suis un lac dans la plaine. Je suis une parole de la science. Je suis la pointe de la lance dans la bataille. Je suis le Dieu qui crée le feu dans la tête, qui jette la lumière dans la rencontre sur la montagne, qui annonce les âges de la lune, qui enseigne l'endroit où se couche le soleil.
Right, thank you so much for joining in this silence. It's so great. So the title of today basically is not so much summarizing the new teaching, but more like a part of this talk is about the idea of concepts of God, releasing the concepts of God. So you could say, like, any time you make a description of God, and that is exactly what it isn't. That is not it. Because God is not a concept. So, and there's no understanding related to the idea of God. But there is the beingness that is God, and that's it. So with our meditation, you could see, like, there are all descriptions of I am the mountain, I am the salmon in the river, I am this, I am that, and this is in fact has to do with the idea of, if God is not definable, God is not say. We cannot put him in a certain little box or big box, whatever. It's like there's no way to define God, because it's unlimited, it's continuous, it's everywhere, it's everything, it's omnipresent, it is always present everywhere, all the time. And so that's also the difficulty, in fact, of finding God. How can you find a God that is everywhere? You can't lose him, you could say. Like, you can't lose him. So you can have an idea that you lost connection with God, but if he's everywhere, that would be impossible. And that's very simplistically said, of course, but it's reasonable, and that's in that sense helpful. So there's no idea of God. There's no idea of God. And so what are we talking about then? If there's no idea? Well, we're talking about the idea of losing concepts of God. So Joel will give us something to work with, and that's what I'm going to share with you in a second. But it's good to see that you can have ideas about God. You can have certain resistance to God, or you of course feel the love for God. But then, what is that God? That God cannot be defined by anything. It can be experienced. Yes, the communication can be experienced, but not by defining it. So that's an interesting principle, and I thought that was essential to take a look at. So there are some of the expressions that I use today that are related to that. The concept, giving up every concept of God. If God is spirit, you may refer to God as it. If God is consciousness, you can refer to God as it. If God is life, you can refer to God as it. But what happens if you have come along with the infinite way to the place where it asked of you to give up every concept of God that you have entertained? See, then what does that mean, that God is spirit, or that God is, or that God is consciousness? Like God is life, you can all say that, but then it becomes a concept. It is not like coming to the direct experience of it is, of course, where something else can happen, and where something true can happen. So why is Joel sharing this here? Well, see, it is in fact very much related to what has been done in Christianity, and that is defining God. God is this, you should be fearful of God. God will judge you. God will do this, God will do that. Like all concepts of God based on an idea, a human idea of punishing God, or all this. So the direct experience of communication is missed by that. Now, I can be completely absorbed by a religion, by an idea of God, by thinking that if I follow those, I can believe that, and then it will give me something, whether that's now or maybe when I pass on, I might meet God in heaven. So it's like God is in heaven. God is not here. God is in heaven. I can pray to him somewhere else. He's somewhere else, and I can pray to him. Joel brings this back in almost every talk, that there's not God but it's like, how can you explain anything that you are? You are that. So there's no consideration to be made. The consideration is immediately a step away from it. Now that's not understandable for a human mind. It's simply not. So the tendency to follow those concepts and believe in them is at least some kind of holding on to it that gives you a sense of certainty and comfort. And you can sing beautiful songs, you can write beautiful poetry about it, deep prayers of that, bringing God in as someone you can ask something to get something, and forgetting the point where you can actually experience him. And that is right here, right now. What is necessary for that, to experience God right now? That's in fact the question that's behind all of this. What do you need to experience God now? Do you need to sit and meditate for 10 or 20 or 30 years before you come in touch with God, to communicate with God? You see, that's not what's asked of you. It is not what's asked of you. So Joel invites you to give up every concept. The infinite way is literally asking you to give up all the concepts that you have of God, because they have nothing to do with God. Now, but they're about God, you say. Like, yeah, well, they're about God. That's at least close enough, right? No, it's In fact, no, it's not. As long as you hold on to any idea, you cannot experience God, because then you try to fit God into your construct of thoughts, and in fact you include him into your dream. And a dream is not a realization of truth. So in other words, your consciousness is fully occupied with concepts that have no reality, that are just based on ideas that you have read, that you have heard, that are taught to you in order to do something spiritual or something what might have some meaning at a certain point. So what is necessary then to experience God is what you can keep asking, like, what is that? And so I'm going to give an answer to that, but I'm still waiting. So the thing that we read in the meditation too is continuously, I am this, I am that, I'm basically everything. Now here's a fundamental thing going on too within the human mind, the mortal mind, and that is, it is a very strange belief, or a very strange questioning, to wonder what you are, to not know what you are. You are created by God, perfect, perfectly created, Son of God, and you wonder who you are, of what that means, that the Son of God. What is the Son of God? Look, while you are that yourself. So that's alien to reality, you could say. It's totally alien to reality, because the meaning of beingness is what the universe is. Like literally, you question what you are. And in that questioning, you place yourself outside of it. So again, like, what do I need to do to come to an experience, a direct experience of God? Is that possible even? Yes, of course that is possible, because it's basically the only natural thing for you. You are already part of it, but not as you see yourself, not as you see God. So that's why I bring in these ideas of questioning who you are, is literally what keeps you away from experiencing who you are. Questioning who God is, or defining God in your own terms, in your own ideas, is preventing you from experiencing the direct communication with God. And you literally don't know how not to do that. So you keep doing that. You cannot stop doing that up to a certain point. And in fact, mostly that is a point of deep frustration, that you have, like, I have to know that now. I want to be in direct communication with God. I want to give up every idea that I hold about God. I want to give up every idea that I hold about myself. In that, say, readiness or willingness to do that, now the door is open, in fact. But see, that has to be a wholehearted expression of yourself, a wholehearted not wanting to know something else but this, like my total dedication to be open to communicating with God. Even though I don't know how to do that, I don't know who I am, I want to experience that. So this is based on willingness. It is not based on your capacity to train and to meditate for 10 hours straight or anything. It's like, no. It's really about your decision to be willing to release those ideas for a moment, to not know where you step into, to be completely open to what is here already. And then the surprise follows. Because in fact you step into something that is so familiar to you that you had like, I don't know what I waited for so long. But you can only experience it when you release those ideas. So and that is in fact what Joel will be telling us too in the talk. In his own way. That's why I express it now too this way. So we continue with another expression. Now we are called upon every day of our lives to bear witness to this revelation, this new communication with God, because whether or not I may need any immediate supply, there are those who come to me in the mail, by person or in person, by cable, by telephone, by email these days, presenting to me the claim of lack and limitation. But I can have only one answer. The I that I am is what you are, thou art. Therefore, the fullness of the Godhead bodily, which is the fulfillment of my being, is the fulfillment of thy being. Since there is but one I, one infinite being, regardless of how many times it may be manifested on earth, there is only one infinite being. So what else can you answer, is what Joel says. The I that I am, you are. Therefore the fullness of the Godhead bodily, which is the fulfillment of my being, is the fulfillment of your being, since there is but one I. One infinite being, regardless of how many times it may be manifested on earth. It's like there's one infinite being. Now you see, you hold a concept about your brother too. So the funny part then in perceiving is this then, of the mesmerism that is embedded in perception, in seeing it with your eyes, is that you see your brother as an object outside of you. You see people over there, people you like, people you don't like so much, people you never want to see. You organize it in your own mind, forgetting, of course, that there is only one of us, that there literally is only one consciousness. So you can see, like, through your understanding, or through your perception, through all the objective ideas that you hold, you will not see oneness. It's impossible to see that through your eyes, in fact. Like, you cannot see that through your eyes. But at the same time, you base your reality on what you see, and you protect yourself. And when I would push the button of that in you, so to speak, then you say, like, oh, well, wait a minute, no, don't do that, because now, in fact, there's a conflict there. I have to release my idea about who I think I am in order to experience who I am. And that's the thing that you do when you don't have any options any longer, in the sense of desperately having enough of your own ideas, basically, and seeking for an alternative. Then suddenly I can be open to receive it. Not necessarily that it has to be like this, but in many cases it is. Because otherwise you keep repeating your own story, thinking that there's a value in that there's, by you expressing that, you think you're honest when you do that. And you can say, like, well, at least you admit to it. That's quite good. But why are you admitting at it? Like, are you admitting at it to get the attention that you want to let something occur and maybe repeat it once more, since there's a lot of attention for lack and for need and for pain and for all of this, in fact. And you think that is love. So this is the mess that you're in fact, in your human thinking. It's a mess, because you literally confuse love with fear. You think that the ones that need help are always the ones that need help, in the sense of you have to give them attention because they are asking for help, or who knows what, like from an idea that there is such a thing. This is what I mean. It's like, okay, if you can step back and look at it with, in fact, a recognition of there's no lack, there's no limitation, there's this communication that's going on. That's the only thing that's real about me. And so that this suffering cannot be real. The lack cannot be real. But I can only experience that when I let go of these perceptions that I have about what I see. So then I recognize what is within me as a communication with God is in you too. I was just mistaken by thinking that you're someone outside of me. So in fact, that can come back to you in recognizing your wholeness and, yeah, in fact, in experiencing the love of God. Oh yeah, this is so great. The temptation isn't that I lack in integrity or morals. No, the temptation is to accept myself or you as man. If I accept you as man, I accept all of the limitations that go with that identity. And then I can hardly deny that you may have sin, sickness, lack, limitation, unhappiness, and on and on and on and on, or any other of the world's claims that afflict man. See, this is exactly what I mean. It's like the temptation is not a sinful act. Well, it is in a true sense, it is, but it's like temptation is in fact confirming you in your lack and limitation, confirming you in your pain, confirming you in your conflicts, in fact confirming you as someone outside of myself is in fact all the temptation. Because what happens when the mind does that, like when I start to do that, I place you outside myself. I think that there are two things and not one. So whatever I do after that, you are already part of a dualistic thinking. Like I'm already part of a world of opposites and receive the consequences of that. And I can keep myself very busy with that, and I can feel really good about it because I see that you are needing help and you see that you're doing this and see that. In the same time, I place you outside myself. In fact, I crucify you instead of ascending with you, holding your hand, recognizing that we're home in heaven. That's a whole different choice and a whole different consequence. Now this is great. Joel brings this in pretty clear. I love that. It's like the temptation is, in fact, you behaving as a human being. That's what your temptation is. You really think there's a world out there where you need to do something with. You really think that the limitations that are, in fact, brought to you, that they have a reality and that there's a brother that is suffering. Not recognizing that you're the one that is suffering. Thinking that that's even possible. So that's quite, revolutionary, you could say. It's quite strong, this. But this is what we're going to encounter in the new teaching more and more and more, because it will become sharper, clearer, and in fact it becomes more clear what decision you have to make about yourself, about God, in terms of none of that I want to hold on to, I want to let go of. The truth needs to be unveiled, right? This is the meeting for that. Therefore, there is only one tempter, and that is the universal belief. There's only one Satan or devil, and that is an impersonal universal belief. But there is only one temptation, and that is the belief to accept myself and thyself as other than I that I am. Oh, says Moses, I am that I am. Oh, says the Master, I am that I am. I am the way, the truth, and eternal life. And then reveals this to us as a universal truth, not merely about himself. For if I speak only of myself, I bear witness to a lie. We hear Joel say this almost in every talk too, so this is really lovely too. So there's only one tempter, and that's the universal belief, like admitting to the universal belief. That's your action of mind. You make that real if you think that that is a real thing. or that that has a value, that you need to live by that. And that you say, not accepting you as the I that I am, and not accepting you as the I that I am means that I'm in fact signing a contract with the devil, if you want to put it that way. It's like you literally placed your brother outside yourself, and you placed, in fact, God outside of the picture altogether, because your brother here comes to you with lack and limitation, financial problems, who knows what, death, disease, disaster, all of this. Your brother comes to you with that. And now that is your temptation. If you make that real, you're in the picture. You're literally in that same dream, suffering the same consequences. So you forget the truth of you, because if you go, so to speak, go for the experience of the truth for you of you, you would also recognize that in your brother. And you cannot make any of those limitations real. And this helps you, this opens the door, literally, the door of your consciousness to experience the direct communication with God. And this is the thing that, in fact, up to the point that you accept this, you experience it, up to that point you deny it actively. You're fully in ignorance if you confirm any of the limitations outside of yourself that seem to be outside yourself, or the whole idea of limitation, disease and disaster. So that's the tricky part, you could say. But you releasing those ideas open the door to a direct experience with God.
Good morning. You realize, of course, that this morning concludes the work that has been done here in Hawaii ever since the middle of August, when this higher message came through. And although it is embodied on 2 series of tapes, it doesn't mean that we have actually attained the consciousness of the message, even though we have learned the nature of what our attainment must be. We have worked since the middle of August with a message that not only has revealed to us the necessity for our realizing the nature of God, but more especially realizing the nature of God as our own being, so that within us is broken down the universal belief that there is God and me, with the realization that God is manifest as me. This, of course, goes back to the original revelation given to us in the book, The Infinite Way, and continued through all the rest of the writings. But with this difference, that we are now presumed to be ready for the realization rather than the teaching. It is one thing to be taught something. It is one thing to teach something. It is quite a different thing to be that, to attain the consciousness of that which has been taught. Actually, we have been taught for 2,000 years that I and my Father are one. Yet there are very few people on the face of the globe who have attained any measure of awareness of that relationship with deity. I and my Father are one would mean I am that one. Thou seest me, thou seest the Father that sent me. And you know how far short we fall from actually having realized that I am He, and therefore living out from the basis of being spirit rather than man seeking spirit. It is for this reason that it has taken 17 years of teaching in the infinite way to present the message in many, many different forms, gradually lifting consciousness above the belief of separation from God through the steps of intellectually agreeing that I and the Father are one, to the attainment of a consciousness through which we would be enabled to say, whereas before I was blind, now I see. I am He. The two series of tapes, just completed with this lesson this morning, enables us to take a higher stand and a higher step in abiding constantly and consciously in the realization of I. This means that with every temptation to accept ourselves as a selfhood apart from God, with every temptation to accept others as having a selfhood apart from God, that we must immediately retire into that word I and abide in that word. I am He, I am Thee, I am Thou, I am He, I am She, I am It. Because I am that I am. That spiritual identity, I am. And this immediately brings to temptation. The experience of believing that I am separate and apart from my good. Therefore, that my good must come to me, or even that my good can come to me. Now stop for a moment and think over all that you have heard these past 6 weeks. Day in and day out, evening in and evening out. And see whether or not you can be tempted to accept the universal belief that my good can come to me. From anywhere, from anyone, from any power, from any being. Or do I realize that by voicing the word I, that I am declaring the divinity of my being, and therefore the all-inclusiveness of my being, so that I cannot receive bread, meat, wine, or water. I cannot be resurrected. I cannot receive life eternal. By virtue of voicing I am the bread, the meat, the wine, the water. I am the resurrection. I am life eternal. I am He, the very good that should come. I embody, I embrace the infinity of being in the consciousness which I am. Therefore, regardless of the nature of the temptation that would present itself to me and cause me to demonstrate supply, health, safety, security, I must remember why the Master revealed his own temptation to the disciples, why he revealed to them that he himself faced 3 temptations. And the way in which he handled those temptations. Get thee behind me, temptation or tempter. For I do not have to demonstrate bread. I do not have to turn stones into bread. I do not have to demonstrate safety. I do not have to depend on a God to protect me. Well, I have realized that I and the Father are one, and all that the Father hath is mine. Therefore I have bread without the necessity of demonstrating it. I have safety and security without proving it or testing myself or seeking it from God. As a matter of fact, he was indicating that he had come to the realization that there was no God outside of himself that could give him bread or safety, even if he jumped off the cliff. For the safety as well as the bread was included in the consciousness which I am. And so he was virtually denying any God, any power, separate and apart from his own consciousness. Now, we are called upon every day of our lives to bear witness to this revelation, because whether or not I may need any immediate supply, there are those who come to me in the mail, in person, by cable, by telephone, presenting to me the claim of lack and limitation. But I can have only one answer. The I that I am, thou art. Therefore, the fullness of the Godhead bodily, which is the fulfillment of my being, is the fulfillment of thy being. Since there is but one I, one infinite being, regardless of how many times it may be manifested on earth. Therefore, I must bear witness every time that the tempter comes to me or to you, or to any you, anywhere. I must bear witness to the fact, to the truth of I, the oneness of I and the Father, the infinity of all that the Father is, being embodied in the I that I am. In healing work, mental, physical, moral, as well as financial problems, the answer is the same. This is the tempter appearing, claiming that we are man. Whatever that word man may be, certainly, according to the dictionary, something separate and apart from God. That is the whole temptation. The temptation isn't that I'm lacking. The temptation isn't that I'm sick. The temptation isn't that I lack in integrity or morals. The temptation is to accept myself or you as man. If I accept you as man, I accept all of the limitations that go with that identity. And then I can hardly deny that you may have sin, sickness, lack, limitation, unhappiness, or any other of the world's claims that afflict man. Therefore, there is only one tempter, and that is a universal belief. There is only one Satan or devil, and that is an impersonal, universal belief. But there is only one temptation, and that is the belief to accept myself and thyself as other than the I that I am. Oh, says Moses, I am that I am. Oh, says the Master, I am that I am. I am the way. I am the truth. I am life eternal, and then reveals this to us as the universal truth. And not merely about himself, for if I speak only of myself, I bear witness to a lie. Therefore, this must be the truth about you, since your father is my father. My father is your father. We have but one father. Therefore, we are the one son, the same sonship. The truth about me is the truth about you. For I speak and bear witness to my Father and thy Father. Therefore, I bear witness to sonship. My sonship, thy sonship. That I am heir of God, that thou art heir of God, joint heir, and not to a little bit of heaven, but to all of the heavenly riches. You see, in the years of our metaphysical development, we were learning to impersonalize God. We were learning that, first of all, there is no such thing as a Hebrew God and a Jewish God and a Vedanta God and other gods, but that there is but one. We were learning that that God is neither male nor female, because we were learning to use the word it many, many times, so that those who have eyes to see would see and those who have ears would hear, while the others would still read the word he often enough not to offend them, and let them come up gradually to the fact that God is not a he. God is I. But through our period of growth in metaphysics, we should have been weaned away from God as he to God as it, more especially since practically all metaphysicians have used synonyms for God like mind, spirit, principle, soul, intelligence, wisdom, and certainly you could not call these male. And therefore, the very fact of having come up, whether it was through Christian Science or Unity or New Thought, it must have been clear that we are not dealing with a personal God in any of these, but with an impersonal God whom at times we have learned to call it. But this only represents a step in our spiritual development. For God is not it. How can God be I and God be it? If I say it, am I not saying something other than myself? Is it not I declaring an it? So how can there be an I and an it? Is this not a subtle temptation to accept a selfhood apart from God? Is it not merely a step upward toward the light that each one inevitably must take, because it is far too difficult for certainly for a Christian or a Jew to accept He, the Father, as I. That's a little bit too big a jump. Therefore, it is easier to go from He to it, and thereby realize that God is not a personal being of whom you can ask favors. You can always ask favors of a Father God and of a Mother God. It's quite difficult to convince yourself that you can ask a favor of an it, and thereby itting God is a step in the right direction, because it makes you surrender this reaching out to God for something. It compels you to come up higher in consciousness, in your understanding of the nature of God. If God is spirit, you may refer to God as it. If God is consciousness, you can refer to God as it. If God is life, you can refer to God as it. But what happens to you if you have come along with the infinite way to the place where it asks you to give up every concept of God that you have ever entertained? Well, the question arises, have you? Have you ever set aside a period and then repeated it at intervals to rehearse in your mind all of these synonyms? Spirit. Is this God? Or is this a word up in my mind? If it is God, it must instantaneously transform me and all that concerns me. But since declaring that God is spirit leaves me as I am, I must come to the conclusion that by saying God is spirit, I have not yet attained God. Is God law? Well, I declare it, and I find myself the same being I was before. And then I must realize, well, I haven't declared God. All I have done is give God another name. And where does that name exist? In my thought. I still haven't reached God. Oh, but God is love. Well, I find myself just as hateful as I was before. So evidently I haven't reached God by declaring that God is love, or by knowing that God is love. Therefore, by knowing that God is love, I haven't found God. I have merely given another name to God. A name, an identity which exists in my thought. Undoubtedly, Lao Tzu declared the message of the infinite way when he said, if you can name it, it is not that. And how true that is. If you call God, God, it isn't that. If you call God love, it isn't that. If you call God spirit, it isn't that. And rehearse a dozen or 24 more names that have been given to God at different times, and you will discover none of those is God. These represent concepts of God. John, through his great spirit of love, realized God as love. Evidently, this is a facet of God, a mode of expression of God, a way of God. It isn't God. Evidently, the Hebrews who saw God as law experienced God through law. Perhaps they witnessed, as I have, that there is a law of like begetting like. Apples come from apple trees, and peaches come from peach trees. Roses come from rose bushes. Orchids come from orchid plants. The white race begets a white race. The yellow race begets a yellow race. The black race begets a black race. Evidently, there is a law. And if you mix the yellow and the white, you get a mixture of yellow and white. And if you mix the black and the white, you get a mixture of black and white. Therefore, there is a law. And so perhaps the Hebrews saw this, and they realized that God functions as law. And this is true. This is a way of God. This is a facet of God. It isn't God. There's much more to God than law. Much more to God than love. Much more to God than spirit. And so, it was revealed to me, and this was in the early 1930s, not through reading it. No, this was before I knew of such writings. This was while going through a period of lack. It was revealed to me that I did not know God because I knew God as words. I knew all the synonyms for God, and yet was lacking. So there must be something wrong, because you cannot know God and lack. To know Him aright is life eternal, life immortal, life infinite. Therefore, in the degree that we lack, physically, mentally, morally, financially, it makes no difference. In the degree that we lack the knowing of Him aright. Therefore, to keep using words, synonyms, names, well, it proves really to be of no more benefit than going back to Jesus' pet name for God, which was the Father within. Why do we not just remain with Jesus' teaching that God is the Father within? Why do we need any other synonyms? Because the Father within actually was realized by the Master, and with us it's a word.
Great. Thank you so much for being here today, present. This was, in fact, the last meeting of the series, Truth Unveiled. So this is also our last Hawaiian talk that we listen to. And next week we go to England, so to speak, to London, to do the London work and see what that brings us. So that new series is called I Am the Way, because it literally brings you to yourself as the extension of truth, more than in any other tapes that I've listened to from Joel. So that's really like, that covers it. I am the way. And what that means, you don't have to know, you are that. So that saves you a lot of figuring it out. But to come into that certainty and come into the demonstration of these things, we will continue to take a look at it, to look at some expressions, to bring it to life, in fact, in ourselves. Recognize the life that is in ourselves. It would be a better way of saying that. Now, if you want to receive the emails and the transcripts for that, you're welcome to do so. So you announce yourself by email or through the website or any kind of way. Then I'll send it to you. Because, yes, we love to continue doing this. It's really lovely to meet this way. It is so specific for me also to do this Sunday night for me, then Sunday night meeting, and bring in Joel all the time, with listening to his tapes, with looking at what is he actually saying, and preparing myself to express this with the words that come through me. And also to take time to meditate on beforehand. We will continue doing that too. And so I want to say thank you to Michelle, who's always ready to recite it in French, and Pierre, who always wants to translate it into French so that we can also present this to many who speak French, which is very lovely. So thank you so much for doing that. With that, I say, okay, we end with a Hawaiian song. We have heard it before, but it's still great. So it's warm and sunny. It's beautiful. It smells like flowers. And this is how I would love to end this series of The Truth Unveiled. Thank you, Joel. Thank you for listening, for taking part in it, being present in it. And see you soon. Thank you for everything.